Hey, my name's James Nicholson and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I've got this week's property news. There's a lot that's happened this week. We've got the renters' rights bill. We've got all sorts of things happening with mortgages. We've got some house price data. Lots and lots to get through, as we say every single time we do the news. Now, before we jump into this, if you're new around here and you haven't done already, do make sure you subscribe to the channel over there and hit that bell notification. We're one of the fastest growing property channels in the UK. And by subscribing, you'll get all the latest house price news, interest rate news, renters' rights news, and much more. And let's get some views on this video. Your part's simple. All you need to do is smash like, tick or like, do something to that like button. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and that's really helped the channel grow. So thank you to everyone that does that. So, another busy week. Is it never not busy in the world of property at the moment? Well, it's busier because Parliament's back, and so they're starting to get things back moving again. And so there was quite a lot happening with the renters' rights bill this week. So let's have a look at that first and see what happened there and recap on that. So the two things that I think we really should look at here is the amendments. And so just before they broke up for their summer holiday, there was a lot of amendments tabled, and unfortunately this week most of those got rejected. Nearly all of those got rejected by the government, and it's likely that they won't get looked at or renegotiated and brought back. So that means that the next step, unless there is any more debate needed, but it's looking like the next step is royal assent, which is the next stage in order to make this law. But then we've had the housing minister speaking in Parliament about when will all of this roll out and how will it roll out? And the answers aren't very clear. It seems like there's going to be delays with this rolling out. And I would say that that's very likely. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know this channel, at the beginning, we talked a lot about leasehold reform. And there was something called the Leasehold Reform Act that went through. It went through royal assent, became law, and most of that is still not active law at the moment. They promised that you could extend your lease for a lot cheaper. They promised that you could get 990 years on your lease when you do the extension. None of that's active. All they've really activated on that is that you don't have to wait 2 years when you get a new property to extend the lease. So that is a bit silly really, but the government are saying here that, look, we don't have dates, and it's likely, I believe, that this will be very slow, like the Leasehold Reform Act. One thing that they did clarify was, how will the rolling tenancies come into effect? So will, once this goes live, all tenancies need to be moved onto a rolling tenancy? No, they don't. They won't have to be moved onto a rolling tenancy. What will actually happen is when that tenancy expires, their current one, so maybe they've got a 6-month one now or a 1-year tenancy, when that expires, their new tenancy would start as a rolling tenancy. So if you want to make sure that you keep people on a 1-year tenancy as long as you can on the old terms, renew people just before the bill kicks in. That would be my advice, and I think a lot of people will be doing that. Now, we've done multiple videos on the renters' rights bill, more detailed this week, so do go and check. If you click below where it says Property Accelerator down there, you can click videos and you can see all of those there. Next, Bank of England. So the Bank of England meet next week. The markets are saying they're not going to cut rates. Very unlikely that they're going to cut rates. In fact, the markets don't believe the Bank of England will cut rates again until December now. So that's a long time from now. We're not expecting another cut. The Federal Reserve, however, are going to likely cut next week. 90% chance that the Federal Reserve will cut next week. Even with USA inflation going up and unemployment going up, they're likely to cut because they haven't cut for a little while. We cut last month, they did not. The Bank of England and the Federal Reserve, they do like to keep their rates fairly similar. They can cut still, and it doesn't mean we have to. So it's unlikely that we will cut. Bank of England cut will likely next be in December. So we'll keep an eye on that. We talked a lot about this week about low deposit mortgages. And we're nearly at a record high of those. We've got 1,500 low deposit mortgages on the market now. And by that, we're talking about mortgages where you need a 5% to 10% deposit. There's 1,500 options for people, first-time buyers, remortgages, people looking to get into the market. So that's a lot. Last time it was higher than that, ironically, was 2008, where there was 1,700 low deposit products. Now, this is different to 2008 because in 2008, there were low deposit, but you also could get no deposit mortgages, 100% mortgages, where you could also get a 10% loan on top, giving you 110% of the value of the property. We're not at that, but you do need to proceed with caution if you take a small deposit mortgage to make sure that you can build some equity in there. I'd focus on building equity by adding value to the property. That's a smart way to do that. So low deposit mortgages, we've got a video on that. Go and check that out if you want to know more about that. House prices. So we've done a couple of videos on house prices. You've got Nationwide saying house prices are down, Halifax saying they're up, but they're pretty much even, aren't they? There's not much movement in house prices at the moment. So what do we have to look at next to see where house prices are likely to go? Well, asking prices is the next most important metric. And there are 850,000 properties in the UK that have been reduced in the last year. That's a lot. That's the highest ever. Now, that doesn't mean house prices are necessarily going to drop. Asking prices have had record highs this year as well. It doesn't mean that they're even going to sell those properties. You can't get a sold house price until you actually get a sale, can you? But it does indicate the market is softening, and probably house price data in 3 or 4 months, once we see those transactions complete, is likely to be down somewhat. So we made a more detailed video on that and what's going on as well. So do check that out. Rent controls. Scotland are bringing back rent controls. They did this in 2022. It didn't work. It made rents skyrocket, some areas as high as 70%. It was really, really difficult for a lot of people. Places like Edinburgh, landlords fled the market. Now in Edinburgh, you can get as many as 200 people applying for one property, 200 applicants. So if you're a really good tenant, you've got great credit, you've got lots of money in your salary, you've got the deposit, you've still struggled to get a property in Scotland. They're bringing it back. It's not the smartest move, in my opinion. And the reason we talked about that is because that is something that could be discussed again in the Renters' Rights Bill or added to something in the future. If the government feels it's something that they want to copy, they could look to see what's going north of the border and see how that's going. We did a video on all of the outcome from rent controls because a lot of tenants think it's good. Obviously, landlords think it's bad. But tenants, I think if you watch that video that I did this week, you might change your opinion on it. It'd be interesting to see what you think. So go and check out that one. Rates, mortgage rates, not interest rates. Well, it is an interest rate, but your mortgage rate that you actually pay is what you really care about. You don't care so much about the Bank of England rate. Well, they've been all over the place the last week. You've had some companies increasing rates. You've had some companies decreasing rates. On average, interest rates have gone up this week. That's not the best sign. And that's due to the fact that the swap rate, the SONIA swap rate that banks borrow at, so HSBC, Nationwide, NatWest, they all borrow from bigger banks. The cost to them to borrow has gone up over the last couple of weeks. And that's due to the fact that the Bank of England are less likely to cut rates this year. That means they're passing those costs on to you and I, and lenders aren't really giving great deals at the moment. Now, Halifax did cut rates this week. I made a video on that. And that's because the market's quiet. So they're trying to get more market share by doing that. And so if you need a mortgage, maybe they're worth checking out. And last thing I want to cover is rents. Rents are going up still at a crazy rate. We've got some places up north where rents are going up 9.7% this year. Last year, we had rents going up 10%. This year, we've got rents going up 6% on average at the moment. That's really hard for people to stomach. That's more than inflation. That's your biggest bill. Next year, I think rents are going to go up even more. Once this renters' rights bill is active, once Section 21 gets abolished, I think that's not going to get abolished immediately. I think that's going to be down the line. But I think you're going to get influx of Section 21s being served, more landlords quitting, stock reducing, and so rents will go up because of that. I think the smart thing would be for the government to support people building properties. That's not happening either. We covered that this week, where developers just aren't building. In fact, planning applications at the moment are a real low, 17-year low, I think it was. And it's declining, 10 months of declining applications by developers, showing they're not building. They're going to miss their target by 300,000 this year. They're only building 200,000 on. 60% less properties are going to be built than are required to hit that government £1.5 million target. It's not great. And so I think rents, house prices could dip short term. Longer term, they're clearly going to go back up. And rents, I think, are going to keep rising at a scary rate for tenants. And I think the government doesn't have a plan to sort this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Anything else that I've missed this week, do let me know. Last thing before you go, few days left of the fundamentals of property investing for just £20. Now's a great time to get into property, believe it or not. There are lots of tired landlords that want to leave the market. And because of that, you can buy properties at a discount, put them in a limited company so it's more tax efficient. And in the fundamentals of property investing, will help you buy properties below market value. You could also use that if you want to buy a house to live in. We'll teach you how to add value to that property, creating more equity, protecting yourself if there's a downturn in house prices. And then we will teach you how to cash flow that property. Let's be honest, buy to let is tough. Normal standard buy to let is difficult at the moment. So we teach you different strategies: serviced accommodation, HMO, student lets, buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. All of that's included. There's 100 videos for £20. That's crazy cheap. Click in the description to grab that. Click in the first comment. Do smash like on this video. Do check out all the other content as well on the channel, including this video right here.